The red dust of Kepler 442b swirled around Dr. Amanda Brooks as she wiped sweat from her forehead. She had been digging in the alien dirt for 3 months now, and her back ached from bending over the excavation site every day. The twin suns of this distant world beat down on her team as they worked under the clear dome that protected them from the thin atmosphere. "Amanda, you need to see this," called Dr. Peter Hayes from across the dig site. He was kneeling next to a strange piece of metal that stuck out of the ground like a broken tooth. His voice carried excitement that made Amanda drop her brush and hurry over to him. Peter had been her friend since college, and she knew that tone. He only got that excited when they found something important. Amanda knelt beside him and looked at the metal fragment. It was unlike anything she had seen before. The surface was smooth and seemed to shimmer in the sunlight, changing colors as she moved her head. "What do you think it is?" Amanda asked, running her gloved fingers over the strange material. "I have no idea," Peter replied. "But look at this." He pointed to markings carved into the metal. The symbols looked almost familiar, like letters she should recognize, but could not quite read. "Dr. Lisa Carter thinks these might be some kind of writing." Dr. Lisa Carter was their language expert. She could read dead languages that most people had never heard of. If she thought the markings were writing, then they probably were. Amanda felt her heart beat faster. Finding writing on an alien world was huge. It meant there had been intelligent life here long ago. "Where is Lisa now?" Amanda asked. "She went back to the camp to get her books," Peter said. "She wants to compare these symbols to some old Earth languages." Amanda stood up and looked around. The dig site. Her team had been working here since the colony ship New Angeles had dropped them off. They had found pieces of buildings and tools, but nothing like this metal fragment. The whole area seemed to be the remains of an ancient city, but they could not figure out who had built it or when. The ground-penetrating radar had shown them that there were more structures buried deeper underground, much deeper. Amanda had requested permission to dig down further, but the colonial administration kept saying they needed to be careful. They did not want the team to damage anything important. "Dr. Brooks," called Jake Morrison from the equipment tent. Jake was an engineer who had come with the second wave of colonists. He was supposed to help them with the heavy digging equipment. "You need to see what the radar is showing us now." Amanda and Peter walked over to Jake's station. He had set up 3 different radar units around the dig site, all pointed down into the ground. The screens showed cross-sections of what lay beneath them. Amanda had seen these images hundreds of times, but now something was different. "Look at this," Jake said, pointing to his main screen. The image showed their dig site from above, but it also showed what was below. Far below, at least 200 meters down, was the outline of something massive. Something that looked like it had been made, not grown. "How big is that?" Amanda asked. Jake checked his measurements. "About 2 kilometers long, maybe half a kilometer wide. And it's metal, or at least something that reflects radar signals like metal." Amanda stared at the screen. Whatever was down there was huge, much bigger than any building they had found. It looked more like a ship, but that was impossible. Who would build a ship that big and then bury it so deep underground? "When did this show up?" Peter asked. "That's the weird part," Jake replied. "I've been running these scans every day for weeks. This just appeared on the screen yesterday. It's like the thing was invisible before, and now it's not." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine, despite the heat of the twin suns. She had been an archaeologist for 15 years, and she had never seen anything like this. Ancient civilizations did not just become visible to radar overnight. "We need to dig down there," she said. "Amanda, that's going to take months," Peter pointed out. "Maybe years. We don't have that kind of time or equipment. Then we get more equipment, Amanda replied. She was already thinking about who she could call. The colonial administration would have to approve a major excavation, but if there really was something that big down there, they would have to take it seriously. Jake was still staring at his screen. "There's something else," he said quietly. "Look at the edges of this thing." Amanda looked where he was pointing. The edges of the buried object were perfectly smooth. Too smooth. Nature did not make straight lines like that. Whatever was down there had been built by intelligent beings. "We need to contact the New Angeles immediately," Amanda said. "This is bigger than just an archaeological dig now." Over the next few days, everything changed. The colonial administration sent down a full excavation team with heavy equipment. Scientists came from 3 different worlds to study Jake's radar data. Military advisors arrived to assess any potential threats. But the strangest thing was what happened to their equipment. As they got closer to the buried object, their advanced tools started acting up. The quantum scanners gave impossible results. The molecular analyzers shut down for no reason. Even the simple digital cameras started taking pictures that showed things that were not there. It's like the thing down there doesn't want to be studied with modern equipment. Jake complained to Amanda as he tried to restart his radar system for the 3rd time that day. Only the old-fashioned tools seemed to work properly. Hand-operated. Shovels, mechanical pulleys, and basic optical instruments functioned normally. It was as if whatever lay buried preferred the simple approach. Dr. Lisa Carter returned from her research with exciting news. She had been comparing the symbols on the metal fragment to every ancient language database she could access. What she found made no sense. Some of these symbols matched proto-languages that were spoken on Earth over 50,000 years ago. She told Amanda and Peter, "But that's impossible. Humans have only been spacefaring for 300 years. How could human writing end up on an alien world?" Amanda did not have an answer. Nothing about this dig made sense anymore. They had come to study the ruins of an alien civilization, but now they were finding evidence of human presence that predated human space travel by tens of thousands of years. The excavation proceeded slowly but steadily. Day by day, they dug deeper into the red soil of Kepler 442b. The buried object remained exactly where the radar said it would be, 200 meters down. Amanda began to think of it as a ship, though she had no proof that was what it was. As they dug, they found more metal fragments. All of them had the same strange shimmer, and all of them were covered with symbols that looked almost human. Lisa spent her days trying to decode the writing, while Jake fought with malfunctioning equipment, and Amanda supervised the dig. 3 months after they first spotted the object on radar, their shovels finally struck metal. Not a fragment this time, but the actual surface of whatever lay buried beneath them. Amanda was the first person to climb down into the pit and touch the smooth, shimmering hull. The moment her gloved hand made contact with the surface, Amanda knew that everything was about to change. The metal felt warm, almost alive, and somewhere, deep inside her mind, she could swear she heard something responding to her touch. Colonial Administrator Betty Walsh arrived at the dig site on a cold morning when the twin suns were hidden behind thick clouds. She brought with her Dr. Kevin Stone, a xenobiology expert who specialized in studying alien life forms. Betty was not happy about being called away from her comfortable office in the main colony, but the reports she had received were too strange to ignore. "Show me what you found," Betty demanded as she climbed out of her transport vehicle. Her voice was sharp and businesslike. She had been running colonial operations for 12 years and had no patience for wild stories or false alarms. Amanda led Betty and Dr. Stone to the excavation pit where the top of the buried craft was now visible. The metal surface stretched out in all directions, disappearing under the dirt walls of the pit. Even with only a small section exposed, It was clear that whatever lay beneath them was enormous. "How long has this been here?" Dr. Stone asked, kneeling down to examine the metal surface. "Based on the soil layers, at least 50,000 years," Amanda replied. "Maybe much longer." Dr. Stone ran his scanner over the metal hull, but the device immediately started beeping with error messages. He tried 3 different scanners, but none of them would work properly near the buried craft. "This is very unusual," he muttered. "I've never seen technology that interferes with our equipment like this." Betty walked around the edge of the pit, studying the exposed section of the craft. "Have you tried to find a way inside?" "We've been looking," Peter answered, "but there are no visible doors or openings. The surface is completely smooth." As they talked, Amanda noticed that her hand was bleeding. She had cut it on a sharp piece of excavation equipment while climbing down into the pit. Blood was dripping from her palm onto her work gloves. Without thinking, she pulled off the glove to examine the cut. A single drop of her blood fell from her hand and landed on the metal surface of the buried craft dot. The reaction was immediate and startling. Lines of blue light began spreading out from where her blood had touched the metal. The light moved like water, flowing across the surface, creating patterns that looked almost like circuit boards or nervous systems. Within seconds, the entire visible section of the hull was glowing with soft blue light. "Everyone step back," Betty ordered, but her voice was filled with wonder rather than fear. The light continued to spread, presumably across the entire buried craft. The pit began to hum with a low, musical sound that seemed to resonate in their bones. Amanda found the sound oddly comforting, like a lullaby she had heard as a child, but could not quite remember. Dr. Stone held up his scanner again, but now it was going completely crazy. Numbers flashed across the screen too fast to read, and warning lights blinked in patterns that made no sense. "The entire electromagnetic spectrum is lighting up," he said in amazement. "This thing is broadcasting on frequencies I didn't even know existed." Then something even stranger happened. The alien members of their research team began to feel sick. Dr. Krickstow was a Zephyrian scientist who had volunteered to help with the excavation. Zephyrians looked somewhat like tall, thin humans, but their skin was gray, and they had large black eyes. Dr. Krickstow had been standing near the edge of the pit when the craft began glowing, but now he was backing away with his hands pressed against his head. "The sound," he said in his whistle-like voice. "It hurts." Captain Velmora was even worse off. She was a Nereid, one of the aquatic people who lived in the ocean worlds of the Kepler system. Her blue-green skin had turned pale, and she was making distressed clicking sounds. "Must leave," she managed to say in broken English. "Cannot stay?" Within minutes, all the non-human members of the research team had retreated to a safe distance of at least 100 meters from the pit, they said. The humming sound was painful to their ears, and the light from the craft made their eyes water. Some of them reported feeling dizzy or nauseous, but the humans felt fine. In fact, Amanda felt better than fine. The humming sound was pleasant to her ears, and the blue light seemed to energize her rather than tire her. She looked at Peter, Jake, Dr. Stone, and Betty, and saw that they all looked comfortable and alert. "Why doesn't it affect us?" Peter asked. "I don't know," Dr. Stone admitted. "But clearly this technology is designed to interact specifically with human biology." As they watched, something incredible happened. A section of the hull began to change. The solid metal surface became transparent, like looking through clear water. Then it became permeable, allowing air to pass through. Finally, it disappeared entirely, creating an opening that was perfectly sized for a human to walk through. "It's making a door," Jake said in amazement. Amanda approached the opening carefully. Warm air flowed out from inside the craft, carrying scents that reminded her of spring flowers and fresh rain. The air felt clean and good to breathe. Through the opening, she could see a corridor that stretched into the distance, lit by the same soft blue glow that covered the hall. "Amanda, don't go in there alone," Betty called out. "I'm not going far," Amanda replied. She stepped through the opening and found herself inside the ancient craft. The corridor was amazing. The walls curved gently upward, meeting in an arched ceiling about 3 meters high. Everything was the right size for humans. The corridor was wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side comfortably. The floor had a slight texture that provided good grip for human feet. Most remarkably, the lighting responded to her presence. As Amanda walked forward, panels in the walls brightened ahead of her, showing her the way. When she looked back, the panels behind her dimmed but did not go completely dark, leaving a clear path back to the entrance. Amanda walked about 50 meters into the craft before stopping. The corridor continued ahead of her, curving gently. To the left, she could see other corridors branching off in different directions. The craft was not just big, it was vast. Like a city built inside a ship. She returned to the entrance where her team was waiting anxiously. "What did you see?" Peter asked immediately. "Corridors," Amanda replied. "Lots of them. And everything is sized for humans." Dr. Stone tried to enter the craft, but something stopped him. He could walk right up to the opening, but when he tried to step through, he hit what felt like an invisible wall. "There's some kind of barrier," he said, pushing against something that no one could see. Peter tried next, and he walked through the opening easily. Then Jake tried, and he had no problem either. Betty entered without difficulty. But when Dr. Crickstall approached the opening, even from a distance of 20 meters, he began to feel sick again. "The craft will only allow humans inside," Dr. Stone concluded, "and it actively repels non-human species." Over the next few hours, they conducted more tests. Every human on the team could enter the craft freely. None of the alien team members could get closer than 50 meters without experiencing discomfort. The craft systems seemed to recognize the difference between human and non-human biology, instantly and automatically. "This doesn't make sense," Betty said as they stood in the corridor inside the craft. "How can technology that's 50,000 years old be designed specifically for humans? Humans have only been in space for 300 years. Amanda touched the wall of the corridor, and more blue light flowed under her fingers. The craft felt alive, responsive, almost eager to interact with her. Deep inside her mind, she had the strange feeling that the craft had been waiting for them, waiting for humans to find it. "Maybe," she said quietly, "we need to change our assumptions about how long humans have been traveling among the stars." Amanda stood at the entrance to what looked like the most important room in the ancient craft. She had been exploring the corridors for 3 days now, mapping out the massive ship section by section. Every door opened for her touch. Every panel lit up when she approached. The craft seemed to welcome her presence like an old friend greeting a visitor. The room ahead was different from all the others. It was enormous, with a ceiling that stretched up so high she could barely see it in. The blue glow. The walls curved around in a perfect circle, and in the center was something that made Amanda catch her breath. "Peter, you need to see this," she called back down the corridor. Peter hurried to join her, followed by Jake and Dr. Stone. Betty had returned to the colony to file reports with the government, but she had left strict orders that the team should document everything they found. "What is it?" Peter asked as he entered the circular room. In the center of the room stood a column of what looked like liquid light. It rose from the floor to about 2 meters high, swirling and pulsing with colors that shifted from blue to green to gold. Inside the column, Amanda could see shapes moving, but she could not tell what they were. It looks like some kind of display, Jake said, walking closer to examine it. Be careful, Dr. Stone warned. We don't know what it does. Amanda approached the column slowly. As she got closer, the swirling colors began to stabilize. The shapes inside became clearer. Soon she could see that she was looking at a three-dimensional map of space, complete with stars and planets that seemed to float in the light. It's a star chart, she said in wonder. The map showed their local area of the galaxy, but with much more detail than any chart Amanda had ever seen. She could identify their own solar system and the Kepler system where they were now. But there were hundreds of other systems marked on the map, many of them in areas of space that humans had never explored. Look at these symbols, Peter said, pointing to small marks next to many of the star systems. That Amanda looked closer. Each symbol was different, but they all shared certain design elements that looked familiar. They reminded her of the writing that Dr. Lisa Carter had been trying to translate from the metal fragments. Some of these systems are marked with the same symbols we found on the hull. Amanda realized Jake was studying the map from a different angle. This star here. He pointed to a bright yellow point in the display. That's Sol, that's Earth's sun. Amanda looked where Jake was pointing. The Sol system was clearly marked with a complex symbol that looked like a combination of several smaller marks. But what caught her attention was that there were lines connecting Sol to many other systems on the map. Dozens of lines, creating a web of connections across known space. It's like a network, she said. Earth is connected to all these other places. Dr. Stone was taking measurements with the few instruments that still worked inside the craft. The level of detail in this map is incredible, he said. It shows planetary positions, asteroid belts, even space phenomena that we've only recently discovered. This is information that would take us centuries to gather. Amanda reached out to touch the column of light. The moment her finger made contact, the entire display changed. The map zoomed out, showing a much larger section of the galaxy. Now she could see thousands of star systems, with hundreds of different symbols marking various locations. But what made her heart race was the realization that many of the marked systems were places where humans had established colonies. Terra, the mining worlds of the Centauri cluster, the research stations around Wolf 359, systems that humans had supposedly discovered through random exploration were all marked on this ancient map. This is impossible, Peter whispered. This map shows human colonies that were only established in the last 50 years. Amanda touched the display again, and it zoomed in on a section that showed systems humans had not yet reached. But according to the map, these systems were also marked with human symbols. It was as if the map was showing not just where humans were, but where they were supposed to go. Jake, Amanda said quietly, can you record this somehow? Jake tried several different recording devices, but none of them worked properly inside the craft. The technology here interferes with our equipment, he said, but I can make sketches of what we're seeing. As Jake began drawing rough copies of the star map, Amanda continued to explore the display. She discovered that touching different parts of the column brought up different information. Some touches showed detailed views of individual planets. Others displayed what looked like technical specifications for unknown technologies. The most disturbing discovery came when Amanda touched a section that showed their current location. The display zoomed in on Kepler 442b, showing not just the planet, but the exact location of their dig site. More than that, it showed the craft itself, along with dozens of other similar objects scattered across the planet's surface. There are more ships here, Amanda said, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Stone looked at the display, and his face went pale. If this is accurate, there are at least 40 other craft buried on this planet alone. And look at this, Peter added, pointing to another part of the display. It's showing similar craft on other worlds, hundreds of them. The implications were staggering. If the display was correct, there was a network of these ancient ships scattered across the galaxy, all of them apparently waiting for humans to find them. But why? And who had built them? Amanda was about to explore more of the display when she heard footsteps in the corridor behind them. She turned to see Dr. Lisa Carter hurrying into the room, her arms full of books and data tablets. "Amanda, I've been looking everywhere for you," Lisa said breathlessly. "I've made a breakthrough with the symbols. What did you find?" Amanda asked. Lisa set down her books and pulled out a data tablet showing columns of text comparisons. "These symbols aren't just similar to ancient human languages," she said. "They are ancient human languages. Multiple languages, actually, all combined into a single writing system." "That's impossible," Dr. Stone protested. "The oldest human languages on record are maybe 10,000 years old. This craft is at least 50,000 years old." "That's what I thought too," Lisa replied. "But I've been comparing the symbols to reconstructed proto-languages, theoretical languages that scholars believe existed before recorded history. The matches are too close to be coincidence." Amanda stared at the swirling display, her mind racing. "Lisa, what if human recorded history is wrong? What if humans have been traveling between stars much longer than we think?" "You mean like ancient astronauts?" Peter asked skeptically. "Not astronauts visiting Earth," Amanda replied. "Humans leaving Earth. What if this craft was built by humans from our own distant past?" The room fell silent as everyone considered this possibility. It would explain why the craft responded only to humans, why its corridors were sized perfectly for human bodies, why its displays showed information about human colonies. "But if that's true," Jake said slowly, "what happened to them? Where did they go?" Amanda touched the display again, and this time it showed something new. A section of the galaxy where many star systems were marked, not with symbols of life and activity, but with symbols that looked ominous and dark. Empty symbols, dead symbols. "Maybe," Amanda said quietly, "we're about to find out." As if responding to her words, the display began showing new information. Images flashed through the column of light, ships traveling between stars, planets being transformed, technologies being deployed on a massive scale. And then, suddenly, everything stopping, ships going dark, planets being abandoned, an entire civilization simply disappearing from the galaxy. The ancient craft was telling them a story. The story of what had happened to their predecessors, and possibly what might happen to them. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within a week of Amanda's discovery of the star map, every major news network was broadcasting stories about the ancient human spacecraft. The reaction from the galactic community was swift and dramatic. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez sat in her office on the space station that served as the Galactic Council headquarters. Through her window, she could see ships from dozens of different species arriving for an emergency session. Helen had been representing human interests in the Council for 8 years, but she had never seen the other species so agitated. Her communication device chimed with an incoming message from Earth. It was from the Secretary of Colonial Affairs, and his face looked worried when it appeared on her screen. "Helen, we need you to understand how serious this situation has become," he said. 3 different species have filed formal complaints about the discovery on Kepler 442b. They're saying humans pose a threat to galactic security. Helen sighed. She had been expecting this call. What exactly are they claiming? The Vorthic Empire is saying that humans have been lying about their origins and that we might be planning to take over the galaxy. The Merchant Confederation is worried about trade disruptions. Even the Keeper Alliance is asking questions about human trustworthiness. Helen looked out her window again. She could see the massive battleship of War Prime Zekmoth the leader of the Vorthic Empire. The Vorthic were a warrior species who solved most problems through violence. If they decided humans were dangerous, things could get very bad very quickly. "I'll handle the council meeting," Helen promised. "But I need more information about what was actually found on that planet." Meanwhile, back on Kepler 442b, Amanda was dealing with a very different kind of problem. Captain Roy Parker had arrived, with 3 ships full of Earth Defense Force soldiers, and he wanted to take control of the ancient craft immediately. "Dr. Brooks, I have direct orders from Earth Command," Captain Parker said as he stood in the excavation site. He was a tall man with gray hair and the kind of serious expression that military officers wore when they were not going to accept arguments. "Captain, this is a scientific discovery, not a military operation," Amanda replied. She had been expecting the military to show up eventually, but she had hoped for more time to study the craft. "That was before we learned that alien. Species are viewing this as a potential threat," Captain Parker said. "Earth needs to secure this technology before someone else tries to take it." Amanda led Captain Parker and his team down into the excavation pit. The ancient craft was still glowing with its soft blue light, and the entrance remained open. But when Captain Parker tried to enter the ship, the same thing happened that had happened to the alien researchers. He hit an invisible barrier and could not pass through. "What's happening?" Captain Parker demanded, pushing against the barrier with both hands. "The ship only allows certain people inside," Amanda explained. "We think it has something to do with intent or mindset." Captain Parker tried again, but the barrier remained solid. He ordered several of his soldiers to try, but none of them could enter the craft. The ship seemed to recognize that they were there for military purposes, and it would not allow them inside. "This is unacceptable," Captain Parker said angrily. "We need access to this technology." "Captain, maybe the ship is trying to tell us something," Amanda suggested. "Maybe it doesn't want to be used as a weapon." Dr. Stone, who had been watching the soldiers try to enter the craft, had a theory. "Captain, what if you tried approaching this as a researcher instead of a soldier? The ship seems to respond to scientific curiosity, not military objectives." "Captain." Parker looked skeptical, but he was willing to try anything. He took off his military insignia and weapons and tried to approach the craft with the mindset of someone seeking knowledge rather than power. This time, the barrier let him through. "Incredible," he whispered as he entered the glowing corridors of the ancient ship. While the humans were figuring out how to work with the mysterious craft, the galactic political situation was getting worse. On the council station, Ambassador Helen Rodriguez found herself facing a room full of angry alien representatives. War Prime Zakmoth stood at the center of the council chamber, his forearms gesturing dramatically as he spoke. The Vorthic were large, intimidating creatures with thick armor-like skin and eyes that glowed red when they were angry. "The humans have deceived us all," Zakmoth declared in his booming voice. "They pretend to be a young species, new to the galaxy, but now we discover they have ancient technology that none of us can access. This is clearly a plan to dominate all other species." "That's ridiculous," Helen responded, standing up to address the council. "Humans are just as surprised by this discovery as everyone else. We didn't even know these ships existed." "So you claim," said Trader Prime Vexilla of the Merchant Confederation. The Merchant Confederation controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes, and they did not like surprises that might disrupt the business. "But how do we know you are telling the truth? How do we know humans have not been planning this for generations?" Helen felt frustrated. She was trying to represent her species honestly, but the other council members seemed determined to see conspiracy where there was only coincidence. "The humans must submit to immediate inspection of all their worlds," demanded Scholar Prime Tethros of the Keeper Alliance. "We must know if there are more of these ships hidden in human space." And if you refuse, Zekmuth added menacingly, the Vorthic Empire will consider it an act of aggression. Helen realized that the situation was spiraling out of control. Fear was making the other species act irrationally. They saw the ancient human technology as a threat, even though no human had done anything threatening with it. Back on Kepler 442b, Amanda was making another disturbing discovery. She had been exploring deeper into the ancient craft when she found what looked like a communication center. The room was filled with devices that appeared to be designed for sending and receiving messages across vast distances. When Amanda touched one of the communication panels, it activated and began receiving signals. To her amazement, the signals were coming from other craft scattered across the galaxy. The network that the star map had shown was real, and it was still active after all these thousands of years. Peter, come look at this, Amanda called. Peter entered the communication center and stared at the displays showing incoming messages from dozens of different locations. These signals are coming from everywhere, he said in amazement. There really are ancient ships all over the galaxy. And they're all starting to wake up, Amanda realized. Our activation of this ship is sending a signal to all the others. Jake, who had been monitoring the situation from the colony, contacted Amanda with urgent news. Amanda, we're getting reports from human colonies across the galaxy. People are finding strange structures that just appeared overnight. Structures that look like the ship you discovered. Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. The network was not just waking up, it was revealing itself. After 50,000 years of hiding, the ancient human technology was making itself known throughout the galaxy. What have we done? She whispered. The question took on new urgency when Captain Parker received a priority message from Earth Command. He found Amanda in the communications center, and his face was grim. Dr. Brooks, I just received word from headquarters. The Vorthic Empire is mobilizing its battle fleet. War Prime Zekmuth has declared that if humans don't surrender control of the ancient technology within 7 days, the Vorthic will take it by force. Amanda looked at the displays, showing the awakening network of ancient ships. Humanity had inherited something incredible, but they might not live long enough to understand what it was. Amanda stood in the deepest part of the ancient craft, her hand resting on what she had come to think of as the ship's heart. It was a crystalline structure that pulsed with warm light, and when she touched it, she could feel the consciousness of the ship flowing through her mind. The experience was overwhelming and beautiful at the same time. Are you ready? Dr. Lisa Carter asked from behind her. Lisa had been working day and night to help Amanda understand the ship's records, and now they were about to access the most protected files in the ship's memory banks. I think so, Amanda replied, though she was not sure anyone could be ready for what they were about to learn. The Vorthic fleet would arrive in 2 days. War Prime Zekmuth had made it clear that he intended to destroy the ancient craft rather than let humans keep it. Captain Parker had tried to evacuate the research team, but Amanda had refused to leave. She knew that the ship held answers that could change everything, and she was determined to find them before it was too late. Amanda pressed her palm against the crystal heart of the ship. Immediately, her mind was flooded with images and information that stretched back across thousands of years. She saw the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of stars, and the long, slow journey of a species across the galaxy. The truth was more incredible than anything she had imagined. 100,000 years ago, humanity had indeed been a spacefaring civilization. They had spread across the galaxy, building cities on 1,000 worlds and creating technologies that seemed like magic, even by current standards. They called themselves the first humanity, and they had been the dominant species in the galaxy for tens of thousands of years. But their success had carried within it the seeds of their destruction. As their technology grew more powerful, they began to change. Some humans enhanced themselves with artificial intelligence until they were more machine than biological. Others altered their genetics so drastically that they could no longer reproduce with normal humans. Still others transcended physical form entirely, becoming beings of pure energy. The first humanity split into dozens of different branches, each pursuing their own vision of what humanity should become. Wars broke out between the different factions. Entire star systems were destroyed in conflicts that lasted for centuries. The galaxy burned with the fury of humanity turned against itself. In the end, only one small group of humans remained unchanged. They called themselves the Guardians, and they had refused all genetic modifications and technological enhancements. As they watched their enhanced brothers and sisters destroy each other, the Guardians made a desperate decision. They gathered as many normal humans as they could find and placed them in hidden refuges throughout the galaxy. Earth was one of these refuges, but there were many others. The Guardians erased all records of the first humanity and created false histories for the refugee populations. They wanted to give humanity a chance to start over, to grow and develop without the knowledge that had led to their previous destruction. But the Guardians also prepared for the future. They built the network of ships and scattered them across the galaxy, programming them to activate only when the new humanity had reached a certain level of development. The ships were designed to respond only to humans who approached them with curiosity and peaceful intent, not with thoughts of conquest or war. Amanda saw all of this in her mind as the ship's memories flowed through her. She also saw what the Guardians had learned about the cycle of galactic civilization. Species would rise, develop powerful technologies, and then destroy themselves through war or transcendence. It had happened dozens of times before humanity, and it would happen again with other species, but humanity was different. Humans had survived their first attempt at galactic civilization, and now they had a second chance. The question was whether they would repeat the mistakes of their ancestors or find a better path forward. "Amanda, are you all right?" Peter's voice seemed to come from very far away. Amanda opened her eyes and realized she had been connected to the ship's memory for over an hour. Peter, Jake, and Dr. Stone were all standing around her with worried expressions. "I know what happened," Amanda said weakly. "I know why the ships only respond to humans." She told them everything she had learned from the ship's memories. About the first humanity, about the wars that destroyed them, about the Guardians who had saved the survivors and given them a chance to start over. "So we're not the first human civilization," Jake said slowly. "We're the second. And this network of ships is our inheritance," Peter added. "Technology left for us by our own ancestors." Dr. Stone was thinking about the implications. If this is true, then humans aren't a threat to galactic civilization. We're its potential saviors. Amanda nodded. The Guardians learned something important from watching other species. Every civilization eventually faces a choice between wisdom and power. Most choose power and destroy themselves. But humans survived that choice once before. "What about the other species?" Peter asked. "How do we convince them that we're not a threat?" Amanda touched the crystal heart again, and this time she accessed the ship's communication systems. She reached out across the galaxy to all the other ships in the network, and through them to every human colony and every alien world. "This is Dr. Amanda Brooks, speaking from an ancient human vessel on Kepler 442b, she said, knowing that her words were being broadcast throughout the galaxy. "I want to tell you all the truth about what we have discovered." Amanda told the story of the first humanity and their fall. She explained how the Guardians had saved the survivors and hidden them on worlds like Earth. She described the network of ships and their true purpose. "These ships are not weapons," Amanda said. "They are libraries, hospitals, and tools for building rather than destroying. They contain the knowledge needed to terraform dead worlds, to cure diseases, to travel between stars without harming the environment. They are humanity's gift to the galaxy, not a tool for conquest. As Amanda spoke, something extraordinary happened. The ancient ship began to demonstrate its capabilities. Healing rays emerged from the hull, instantly repairing damage to the excavation site and making the barren soil around them bloom with plant life. The ship's manufacturing systems activated, producing clean water and nutritious food. Communication arrays reached out to make contact with the approaching Vorthic fleet. War Prime Zakemoth received Amanda's broadcast just as his ships entered the Kepler system. He had come prepared for battle, but what he found was an invitation to learn and grow. Humans, Amanda continued, we have inherited a great responsibility. Our ancestors failed because they used their knowledge to fight each other. We have the chance to do better. We can use this technology to help all species in the galaxy, to prevent wars instead of fighting them, to build a civilization based on cooperation instead of competition. The response from across the galaxy was immediate. Species that had been suspicious of humanity began to reconsider. The Keeper Alliance offered to help humans study their inherited technology. The Merchant Confederation proposed new trade agreements based on sharing resources rather than hoarding them. Even War Prime Zekmoth, when he saw the ship's peaceful demonstrations of power, ordered his fleet to stand down. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez, watching from the Galactic Council Station, felt tears in her eyes as she saw the galaxy's attitude toward humanity begin to change. Fear was being replaced by hope, suspicion by curiosity. Amanda stood in the heart of the ancient ship, feeling the weight of 50,000 years of history on her shoulders. Humanity had been given a second chance, and now it was up to them. To prove they deserved it, the ancient craft had chosen its inheritors wisely, but the real test was just beginning.